Joining us now on the line is Joe DiGenova, our legal analyst. Joe, I don't want to throw a curveball at you, but in the last few moments, ABC is reporting that today it looks like the Justice Department is going to announce that they are going to call out the Chinese for their cyber warfare against U.S. companies. Any thoughts on that?
War by another name. Of course, the use of the U.S. legal system, as Americans know, is a vicious weapon, and I'm delighted that it's being used against the Chinese rather than Americans for the first time in a long time. This was inevitable. The Chinese have been spying on American corporations, stealing their data. So have the French, by the way, but we're not going to indict them. The Chinese have been obviously doing many things involving cyber espionage, and it finally got to the point where even this president couldn't take it any longer, and they are now fighting back. This is unprecedented. They are indicting Chinese officials, charging them with crimes. I can't wait to see the indictment itself. It's a fascinating piece of political, diplomatic, legal strategy. I cannot imagine what the Chinese reaction is going to be other than their usual, what do you mean there's gambling going on here?
Well, it is going to come at a time, actually, today, Vladimir Putin is in China.
Right.
And so it comes at a time when, they're going to be on the world stage warming their relationships. Yeah. This is certainly just going to send a chill into the U.S.-Chinese relationship.
Well, this will certainly warm the hearts of the Japanese and the Koreans and others in Asia who fear China immensely, not only because of their economic clout, which is fading a little bit right now, but because of the Chinese building up their military, particularly their ships in the Asian waters. This is long overdue. The Chinese are international scofflaws on every part of the international scene. Commerce, they steal data, they steal information, they steal machines, they steal technology. I applaud the administration. I just can't figure out what the hell took them 6 years to figure it out.
Joe DiGenova, last week a D.C. judge upheld the draconian gun laws in the District of Columbia. He says the people of this city, acting through their elected representatives, have sought to combat gun violence and promote public safety. The court finds that they have done so in a constitutionally permissible manner. Is U.S. District Judge James Boasberg right?
Well, we don't know. I think he probably is partially right. I think this case started in 2010. After, as you know, the Supreme Court struck down the D.C. gun laws in 2008, the City Council reenacted them with very, very strict restrictions, including you have to re-register your gun after 3 years, you have to take a firearms training, you have to have gun safety classes, you have to be photographed, you have to be fingerprinted, you can only buy one pistol a month, quote-unquote. Then Judge Boasberg just ruled, after a 2010 lawsuit was filed by the same folks, Heller, he ruled that the restrictions are fine, and now that group is going to appeal to the D.C. Circuit. I think the D.C. Circuit is going to strike down a number of the provisions. I'm not sure which ones, but this probably is not the final word.
The Justice Department apparently is not going to investigate the deaths of some 40 veterans who were placed on secret waiting lists at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Arizona anytime soon. This according to reports that came out late last week. Thoughts?
Well, they said at this time they're not going to investigate it. My guess is just like everything else, like the IRS.
But Joe, the president says he's madder than hell about
this.
Yes,
I know he's madder than hell. He's so mad that he hasn't talked about it in a month.
Yeah.
He must be, his innards must be just about to fall on the floor. I feel sorry for him. He probably needs medical care at this point.
But he can't get it at the VA.
Yeah, he won't be going to the VA to get it. But the bottom line is they're not going to investigate this as a crime. They're going to let the IG investigate it as administrative mismanagement. However, it's clear that documents have been destroyed, if the reports are true. That is an obstruction of justice. It is also clear that people have died, theoretically, as a result of delaying and putting them on fake waiting lists. So I'm not sure if the department has the stomach to go in and do a criminal investigation. My guess is at the end of the day, God forbid that phrase, they probably will have to conduct at least a preliminary investigation once the IG is through. But this is not going to go away. For the president, this couldn't be worse in terms of timing because he actually has even his own Democrats up in arms about it because of veterans in their own states, a few months before an election. But here is a president who appears to be indifferent, and the reason is he is indifferent. He can be smarmy and nasty and mean. He has lots to say about people he doesn't like and things he doesn't like. But when things matter, he just clams up and becomes, the pharaoh, the sphinx, the guy who doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
This is not going to serve him well, but he doesn't care.
Hey, Joe DiGenova, speaking of being up in arms, I wonder if you could comment on what Senator Dianne Feinstein said yesterday with Candy Crowley on State of the Union there on CNN. She was asked about the Special Select Committee on the Benghazi episode, and the woman who helped oversee the Senate Intelligence Committee responded like this.
You did a study. Are you satisfied now? Would you go along with a Senate panel looking into this or joining up with the House?
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's a hunting mission for a lynch mob, actually.
Joe, is it a hunting mission for a lynch mob?
I think Dianne Feinstein has stayed too long at the fair. For those of us who represent Benghazi whistleblowers, comments like that from public officials are shameful. She should be embarrassed, but she's well beyond that. She's like all the Democrats in the Senate. Let me just lay this marker down. There are no good Democrats in the Senate. Maybe Joe Manchin. This is a disgrace for a public official to talk about 4 dead people this way. People, including the families of the victims, want answers. This administration has not provided those answers. They have not produced all the documents that they should. The revelations of the last 2 weeks demonstrate that. There has been a criminal obstruction of justice by the administration. The families have been lied to repeatedly. For her to say that under these circumstances should be an embarrassment to her. But the truth is, she has lost so many steps. She doesn't even know which side of the Capitol the Senate is on.
All right, so I noticed that Chuck Todd, that intrepid and very curious reporter from NBC,
former Tom Harkin employee,
he says that he thinks all of the questions about Benghazi has been answered. So, Joe, I know you follow this story. In fact, you've represented some of the whistleblowers in this matter. I'm just wondering, could you help poor Chuck Todd out and maybe give him one question that you think has not yet been answered?
Yes, I think we can start with why was Ambassador Stevens in Benghazi for the first place. We know that the Accountability Review Board lied in its report about why he was there. They said he was there independent of Washington. That was a bald-faced lie, and Ambassador Pickering and Admiral Mullen knew it when they wrote it. Why wasn't Hillary Clinton interviewed by the ARB? The person responsible for running the department during the attack was never interviewed by them. But Ambassador Pickering lied on national television when he said she had been interviewed, and then later corrected himself to say, well, actually, we actually briefed her in an exit interview. She was never interviewed. Why wasn't Patrick Kennedy, who was the Assistant Secretary of State for Management, held accountable? What he did was, and what Secretary Clinton did, was they poured down on people below in order to obscure and whose idea was the video. Where was the president hour by hour that night? The number of questions that are unanswered is staggering.
That's like 5, 6, 7, 8 questions there.
We are creating what's called an investigative point list for the members of Congress, for the public, and for obviously WMAL listeners.
Thank you.
About the kinds of questions that are unanswered that will put this nonsense to rest.
And will you send one to Chuck Todd?
You'll be hearing about it shortly.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Okay,
Good
guys.
stuff. Appreciate
Bye.
it.